Hello, I'm Ron Wilson and welcome back to PD Sessions. The RBA left the cash rate on hold and signalled further easing was unlikely after GDP figures exceeded expectations and the European situation improved. Internationally, European Union leaders agreed to a €120 billion economic stimulus plan, while the IMF's chief said she's not in the mood to back down on the harsh austerity measures imposed on Greece. In other news, the government has introduced a new limited Australian financial services licence that lets accountants provide broader financial advice, while the FOFA reforms passed Parliament. Victoria Papandreou has the details.
The RBA left the cash rate unchanged at 3.5% in July. RBA Governor Glenn Stevens made the decision after markets reacted positively to signs of further progress in Europe. With domestic inflation consistent with the 2 to 3% target, economic growth close to trend, and a more subdued international outlook than from a few months ago, the board's monetary policy was appropriate. Australian GDP jumped 1.3% in the March quarter, more than twice what economists had expected from a revised 0.6% in the previous quarter, the ABS said. The rise was led by private consumption and business investment. A separate ABS report showed Australian residential approvals surged a seasonally adjusted 27.3% in May, following a 7.6% decline in the previous month, mainly due to temporary disruptions in Western Australia. Overseas, European Union leaders agreed to a €120 billion stimulus plan to boost jobs and growth as the bloc's debt crisis pummels economic activity and confidence. The package includes a €10 billion boost to the lending capacity of the European Investment Bank and the deployment of €60 billion of untapped EU funds to help businesses and tackle employment. Meanwhile, the IMF has signalled that it will not budge on harsh austerity conditions imposed on Greece as the country's new coalition government pleads for renegotiations on parts of the €130 billion second bailout it received from the IMF and the EU. The IMF's managing director, Christine Lagarde, said she's not in a negotiation or renegotiation mood at all. The comments came after the pro-austerity party, New Democracy, beat the anti-bailout leftist Syriza party in the June 17 Greek elections. New Democracy leader pledged to keep Greece in the Eurozone by making tough decisions needed to repay the nation's debts and at the same time urged for a delay in the spending cuts and tax rises attached to the rescue deal. Across the Atlantic, the US economy added a net 80,000 jobs in June as the unemployment rate remained unchanged at 8.2%. It was the third straight month of weak payrolls growth. The world's largest economy has added an average of 75,000 jobs per month from April through to June, the slowest pace since August through October 2010. A separate report showed economic activity in the manufacturing sector contracted in June for the first time since July 2009, fueling concern that the US economy is succumbing to the effects of uncertainty offshore. The Institute for Supply Management reported that the PMI fell to 49.7% in June from 53.5% in the previous month. A reading below 50% indicates the manufacturing sector is shrinking. Manufacturing activity across Asia's exporting powerhouses worsened as offshore orders fell, suggesting that the region's economy is being afflicted by Europe's debt crisis and weak US growth. China's Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index declined to 50.2 in June from 50.4 in the previous month. In Japan, the PMI fell to a seasonally adjusted 49.9 in June from 50.7 in the previous month. PMIs are important indicators of economic activity. They give a sense of demand and the economic health of major demand centres such as the US and Europe. Local news. A new limited AFS licence has been introduced that's expected to see up to 10,000 accountants become licensed and able to provide a much broader range of financial advice than they were previously able to. The limited AFS licence will give accountants the ability to provide advice on SMSFs and superannuation generally, and class of product advice on base deposit products, general and life insurance, securities, and simple managed funds. Financial Services and Superannuation Minister Bill Shorten said the permit would extend the consumer protection provisions of the Corporations Act, such as the best interest duty, to advice provided by accountants. In other government news, the future of financial advice reforms have passed the Senate. At the FOFA reforms is a requirement for financial advisors to put their clients' interests first, a ban on the payment of sales commissions, and making it easier for a wider range of advice to be provided to consumers. The bills, as expected, include an amendment to introduce a transition period, which delays the formal commencement of the reforms to 1 July 2013. Businesses can still comply with the legislation voluntarily until that date, should they choose to do so. Licensees who elect to voluntarily comply with the FOFA reforms before 1 July 2013 must lodge a notice with ASIC and adhere to all elements of the laws from the application day. Financial planners in Australia and New Zealand will find it easier to work in each other's jurisdictions following mutual recognition arrangements made by ASIC and New Zealand's Financial Markets Authority, or FMA. The agreement enables advisors to provide services on either side of the Tasman based on the qualifications and experience they have attained from their home country. The FMA has granted an exemption for Australian qualified advisors, allowing them to apply to be authorised financial advisors, or AFAs, in New Zealand based on their existing Australian qualifications. In regulatory news, ASIC said it would embark on the next phase of talks with the financial planning industry regarding its proposal to implement a national exam for financial advisors. The purpose of this exam is to make consumers more confident about the industry. The corporate regulator said it would hold discussions about the potential for setting up a self-regulatory organisation to develop and administer the exam, proposing a 2014 start date for the exam with a 2-year transition period. The regulator said it would like to see the completion of the national exam as a membership requirement of an industry association or a condition of employment for industry participants.